Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by...
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Dave Miette Insurance Agency, 504-556-0809 or davemietteINSagency.com.
For over 48 years, Southern Tires and Auto Repair has provided services across the New Orleans metro area. Southern Tires offers a range of tires for all vehicles and ATVs. We also have a full suite of auto repair options, including brake repair, rim repair, custom exhaust, steering and suspension, tire siping, and so much more. Southern Tires and Auto Repair, 2550 Hickory Avenue in Metairie.
Cnc Drugs is a family-owned pharmacy that's been serving Southeast Louisiana for over 50 years. Whether you need help taking care of an elderly family member, a growing child, or even a pet, Cnc provides patient-centered care for your entire family. Cnc Drugs, large enough to serve you, small enough to know you. Locations in Mandeville and Araby.
Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, live from our Pontchartrain Production Studios. And we'll talk about all the home teams today. We'll talk about the Saints, we'll talk Pelicans, we'll talk Tulane, LSU. Also, again, we'll look at the regionals with, again, the Louisiana participants. To break it down for us, one of the best we have in the entire city, Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports joins us on the program. Sean, how are you?
I'm doing great. It's June, middle of the year already.
Yes.
How about that?
Can you believe that?
Flew by.
Right.
But hey, June is an interesting month because you're getting closer and closer to, what we live for around here. Obviously, football season is getting closer, and there's also the ending of, some other seasons that we pay attention to. So it's a fun time of year. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Camp getting ready to start. We're obviously NBA playoffs right now. We'll see what's going to happen with the local teams that are in the regionals. College baseball always fun around these parts. But before we get started, tell us a little bit about what's going on with yourself, with Fox 8, your award-winning blog. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, I have a blog. I have the Further Review blog. It's on the Final Play app at fox8live.com. Try to keep that up to date. Weekly, we do a podcast on that Final Play app as well. Chris Hagan and I have been kind of doing most of that, but Garland Gillen's involved. Juan gets involved, Juan Kincaid at certain times. As far as shows in the off season, we'll do our Thursday night overtime show at 10:30, which I'll be on tonight, and then Sunday night we have the Final Play at 10:30, and then when the fall rolls around, I'll have a whole new slate of shows for you to promote on this show. But so we stay busy with what's happening with Saints, LSU, Tulane, prep. A lot of prep stuff happening, right? Recruiting, that sort of thing. So, yeah, we keep busy. It's fun.
Good deal. And, of course, he's with me on the radio every Wednesday at 4:35, so you can check in with us, Sean, there. Sean, post-June 1st, it's something we've been waiting for when you talk about the New Orleans Saints. When you look at the ability to be able to amortize any dead money over a couple seasons, which is something they desperately need. About $300,000 in cap space right now. There are some needs on this team right now, still. And why don't we start there? First of all, the needs that you feel this team still has to address before they get into training camp.
Well, first off, it hit me yesterday. It didn't hit me yesterday, but it, and it magnifies when you write this. I went and wrote kind of a Saints depth chart each position. I wrote it out and it hit me. I mean, they still have some significant holes, both in terms of starting potential and quality depth, which has been the difference between 7 and 9 and that elite run from 17 to obviously 20. So obviously corner is the biggest need. And, not just corner from in the sense of a starter, corner in terms of quality depth as well. When you're talking about, you have Patrick Robinson, you have Paulson Adebo, you have a couple of undrafted guys. I'm talking about boundary outside corners. You need a guy that you can pencil in as a starter. And then where are you at in terms of depth? Is Patrick Robinson a quality depth guy this time? Who knows? I thought he was going to be one of the ones that they were going to let go in that cap purge early in the offseason. They did not, so clearly they think something of him. But nonetheless, that's a spot where you may be able to add 2 guys, if not one, for sure one, whether that be a free agent signing or a trade. You look at the linebacker depth. I mean, I like Pete Werner as a chance to come in and have an instant impact as a starter, but you need some quality depth behind your top 2. You have Zach Bond, who is still an enigma to a lot of us. We don't know where he's going to settle in. You have Chase Hansen, you have Caden Ellis, you have some Willoughby and McManus. You have a couple of guys there that, maybe developing the guys, but I mean, right now you'd have to say those are special teams guys. Yes. I mean, you need some quality depth there. You look at the defensive tackle position next to David Onyemata, a position of strength in terms of just production and numbers over the last 3 years. Other than Onyemata, you have Shai Tuttle and Malcolm Roach. 2 guys that battled their way onto this roster and certainly earned respect, but do you need some infusion there? Possibly. And you look on the offensive side of the ball, you have Michael Thomas. Could you add a veteran at wide receiver? At least if you write it out on paper, you could make that case. Now, I will say they're higher on the receiving class than perhaps we are. Sure. They love Marquez Callaway. They absolutely love him. They like Deontay Harris as a guy that can give you some snaps at receiver. They have some other guys that they like as well. Maybe a tight end situation could happen, but I think for the most part, you have some significant holes defensively, 1 or 2 on offense, but you add that up, I mean, that can be the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful season at least in terms of what we view as a successful season for the Saints.
Sure, absolutely. The big question going forward is, how are the Saints going to fill those positions? I mean, again, when you look at the available free agents right now, it's slim pickings in a lot of cases. Now, again, there are some post-June 1st cuts that still will be coming from teams, and teams will get into camp and they'll realize, man, look, this young player's really emerged. We don't have to pay this veteran anymore. We can maybe let the veteran go. Will it be trade? Will it be free agency? Will it be a little bit of both? And let's take cornerback first, because I think that's the most significant one.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's some names out there in the cornerback market. The biggest, obviously, was Richard Sherman. I can understand the interest and the connection and what even he said about it, but I don't know if that's the best move for this team, just because he is a little older, had some injuries, has been productive obviously throughout his career, but ran a different scheme. Are they going to implement that scheme with the Saints? Well, if you sign a guy like that, maybe you do, but does that throw off the balance of the rest of your secondary and defense? I don't know. A guy I really like is Bashad Breeland. That's certainly available. I don't know where they're at in terms of interest. He's a better man-to-man corner in that situation, or at least in that scenario. And he's a guy that I think he's got a little more regular in their prototype. I think he's about 5'11.5", 6 foot, as opposed to Sherman's about 6'3", which is a little oversized in terms of their prototype. If that doesn't work out, and I'm sure there's 1 or 2 that I'm missing right now, I think the realistic option is a trade option, which after June 1st becomes more enticing if you're involved with certain players, because teams can spread out dead money hit. You have more present space, and certainly it's easier if you're a team to trade, or it's more enticing to trade after June 1st. Does any big name cornerback on the market require a big name to be traded from the Saints? I don't know. Does it require a big-time draft pick?
Right.
Probably. So I think they have to look at all options, because there's no way they can look at this cornerback room right now and really their entire team and not think at least there needs some infusion here of veteran help, because you're going to need it as you get closer and closer to training camp.
A lot of Saints fans are watching Quan Alexander, his workouts. He's got him on social media. A lot of people holding out hope maybe he's a guy that could come in a linebacker position. Is there a comfort level right now with, again, the unknown next to Demario Davis? Because it really is an unknown. There may be some real talent there. But then that talent is unproven in a lot of cases.
Anytime you have a rookie that has a really clear path to starting, is that an issue? Maybe, because you'd like to have him beat out a veteran to get there.
Absolutely.
So now Quan is a guy that's got to be healthy. And I think that's later in the offseason if he's available, and he's going to come at a very cheap rate.
I think it's
to
going
come back.
Either right before camp or in camp, right?
Exactly, because he's going to have to really prove that he can stay healthy. But even with a guy like Quan, you have to accept the fact that he's probably going to miss some games. And
No doubt.
So I do think he played well when he's here, but it's been a story of his entire career. He just cannot stay healthy. So yeah, I think you can certainly consider that based on his health, based on where he's at when that time comes, but you wouldn't do it right now. It doesn't make any sense. I don't see a lot of teams line up to get him right now, so it's not like it would be a major issue. And he's got obviously strong connections to this area and the Saints, so perhaps he's a guy that you have your radar on, but not right at the moment. But it's one of those situations where I like Pete Werner, and I think he can be a starter on day one, but I still want there to be a path that's not so easy where you're desperate. You have to start a rookie at that position.
But we talked about it before the show started. If Werner's going to be your starter, that means you're moving DeMario Davis to another position.
Depends. Now, what I see when I watch him, I think he's more of a natural fit at the Mike linebacker. And I know DeMario Davis, just watching him the last 3 years, to me, he's much more of an attack style weak side linebacker, which I think that's a better fit. But look, last year they shifted DeMario back to the middle when Quan came aboard. So, excuse me, I'm moving the schedule here. But I do think if Werner's here, depending on what he can, if he can grasp the defense quickly and if you trust him to make calls, I think he's more of a Mike linebacker, and DeMario's probably a little more suited to the will. But DeMario has proven that he can play the Mike, and if that's a better combination, then so be it.
We could talk about defensive tackle and some of the other needs, wide receiver, et cetera, but let's face it, nothing can get done until they come to an agreement long term with either Ramczyk, Lattimore, or maybe again a Marcus Williams. What do you think the holdup is here?
I don't know. I don't know if there's maybe a situation where there are players exercising leverage and obviously are at a price point that is just too unreasonable for the Saints side of things, and perhaps they're trying to use that leverage. That's just me thinking out loud. That's not what I know specifically. I know we're at the point now where it makes sense for the Saints to get this done. So that leads me to believe it's probably a little more on the player side in terms of what they want to, the price range they're at, and the Saints are obviously not at that price range. The clearest deal is Ryan Ramczyk. The only holdup I could see, because I think everyone agrees he deserves to be the highest paid right tackle in football. Does he want to be the highest paid tackle in football? It's a difference of a few $1 million. Or let's just say they all agree he's the best tackle in football. Well, how much higher do you want to be the top paid?
Right.
And sometimes that could be a holdup. And sometimes these situations, there is a little bit more of a patience in the back and forth. But if it comes to a situation where the Saints had to sign a guy, had to bring a guy in, and that's the key to get it, they're going to get a deal done.
Let's look a little bit into the future. We'll stay with tackle for a moment. Next season, not this season, but next season, Teron Armstead's contract is up. It voids. And look, when you look at Ramczyk's guys, his agent, they're looking at the same thing. They're saying if they're going to negotiate something, that if Ramczyk moves, if they move off of Armstead, okay, then Ramczyk's your left tackle.
Right, exactly.
So again, to them, they're probably thinking, well, we're negotiating this as the future left tackle of the New Orleans Saints.
Probably, yeah.
Then the question begs, can you keep on Armstead? When you start talking about where he is in terms of his age,
price,
and then often
that's
injured.
It. That's just it. It would be at a price. That's a little two steps ahead, but I mean.
Right. But if you're making that negotiation
if
right now,
ends up having to shift over to left tackle, does that mean that's the end for Teron Armstead? Yes, I can see that absolutely being the case. He's going into the final year of his deal. They're going to be cash-strapped next year.
Yes.
He's had a long history of nagging injuries. I don't know if there was ever one that put him out for the year, but it always seemed to be little things here and there.
He plays through
3
injuries
games.
too.
He does. He really does. But at that point, you talk about a guy that would be north of 30. Would it be worth the investment at that point? I could see in that scenario them saying it's probably best to get a young guy in and groom him to be the next right tackle.
And tackles can play till they're 35.
No, there's no doubt. They can.
Okay, they can, and they can play effectively till they're 35. Again, you have to make a decision there. Are we going to keep him long term? Is he going to be our guy? Or ultimately going to move Ramczyk because of where the market's going to be to the left tackle position? Because that's going to be interesting. Because I think you could get away with Lattimore paying him the franchise tag next year. Okay, because of the uncertainty of what's going on with the court cases, you can make the argument again. Maybe he believes he's a top 5 corner. Maybe the Saints believe he's a top 10 corner at that point, and then let him play under a franchise tag, which then means that you have to make a decision on Marcus Williams. Because you're not going to go into a franchise tag for a second year with him if ultimately you don't have Lattimore and Ramczyk under contract long term. And look, and you looked at it, I looked at it, there's a long list of core players on this team that next season, after this season ends, they are unrestricted free agents.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a long list.
They're quality football players.
No doubt.
And they're all going to, that have played a lot of good football. They're going to have good resumes to turn in and say, this is what my contract needs to reflect.
Right. And teams are going to want those players.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's why the clearest path, and look, it was probably the only big surprise of the offseason, with all the stuff getting done, that they were not able to get those extensions done at that time. And they literally went under every other rock to create space.
True.
They could not get those extensions done. Who knows where the balance is tipped right now in terms of where the negotiations are. However, that is your ticket, and I only think you really only need to get one. If you get one done, that's enough space to get your draft class signed, get 1 or 2 guys that you need to bring in here, veteran help-wise, and go on your way. So that's why I think June seems like a down month, but it's actually quite a significant month in the NFL calendar.
No, I agree. I think it's more significant than a lot of people are led to believe. All right. OTAs. The Saints and like a lot of teams out there, the players who decide for the NFL Players Association, they're not going to do any on-the-field work. You and I were talking before the show. There are teams doing on-the-field work.
There are teams, yes.
Okay, there are teams that do it. The Saints right now, publicly, are not doing that. Not having a team on the field for OTAs this year, when you have to find out what you have in-house when it comes to quarterback, cornerback, linebacker, wide receiver, defensive tackle, this is not the year not to be on the field, in my opinion.
Yeah, last year they were one of the first teams to say, we're not doing anything, y'all rest up for training camp.
Right.
But they could have the confidence in doing that because 85 to 90% of that roster was coming back that had won a lot of football games, plus they had some additions that obviously fit in well. This team has a ton of turnover, more turnover than you realize at key positions. So as them not to get on the field, I think that is going to be something to watch, because I think it's going to be some time for this team to come together under the best of circumstances, given all the new names. But, not to mention, oh, by the way, you're replacing the greatest player to ever wear black and gold. Somebody's got to get on the field, and you have one of the most popular quarterback competitions in the entire NFL.
Right.
So more time on the field, obviously, the better. But it really is an interesting scenario. You know, I was talking, I was like, man, it's an interesting vibe I'm kicking from the Saints right now. It's really quiet. It's really quiet. Now, sometimes when that happens, they're thinking of something big.
Right.
But it almost feels like they're in this weird sort of in-between right now. Like they know as the NFLPA, and they didn't want to do the OTAs, and they skipped. So they decided to make this concession to do the only strength and conditioning. Who knows what that entails? Maybe they are getting on the field, and we just don't know it. Maybe they're doing a few more on-the-field things that we realize. But we'll see. But I agree with you. I just think with the roster turnover, this new era, if you will, you got to get on the field and see what you have. Because sometimes you have a vision, and real quickly that vision changes the second they get on the field.
And look, you're already in a position now with training camp. You're not hitting like you hit in the past. Football's a contact sport. You get your body ready for, again, an arduous 17-game season. So that's difficult. And then you got a lot of young guys that got to prove they can play. Okay? And they got to be able to prove they can take the next step. Yeah, it's nice to say, okay, these guys look like, again, they're ready to go based off what maybe you've seen in practice. But you got to be able to see that and see that in real time on the field. They're not doing that. The one good thing that we found out this week, Tom Passero reported that looks like they're going to stay with the 16-man practice squad,
Great thing.
which is, I think, is really good. The IRR, where you can come back within 3 weeks, which, again, I think really helps as well. Again, I would have liked to have seen them expand the rosters totally with a 17-game season, but this is a nice compromise here as far as that goes. I want to ask you about the draft. It's our first time sitting here since the draft. Just your overall thoughts on the draft, and just if you want, maybe we'll just quickly go through each one of those picks.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there were some themes that emerged, and then, Jeff Ireland confirmed that in that one-on-one interview with Jeff Duncan. You know, it was a prototype draft.
True.
The lack of medical information scared the bejesus out of a lot of teams. They weren't taking a lot of risks. And I thought the Saints being in the back of each round really hampered them a little bit, just given the circumstances surrounding the draft, like I just said, with the lack of information, new GMs, all that stuff. It was harder for them. They really wanted to move up first round. Mickey Lewis confirmed to me they tried to get to the top of the second round to get either Tyson Campbell or another one of those guys that they had targeted on their board. It didn't happen. So it felt like there was a lot of trial to get up and get certain guys, but you saw it was a thinner draft board. They went up and got certain guys. In regards to each pick, you know, Peyton Turner is a guy, you know, you like his size, you like his ability to kick inside. I think he's going to get on the field in that NASCAR package in some form or fashion. I think he's the eventual replacement to Cam Jordan. I think he's pretty solid all the way around. He's pretty clean. He checks a lot of boxes in that regard. The only thing that worried me was the lack of domination on the field against lines of scrimmage that should not have dominated him. He has relentless effort. I like that about him. He never gives up on a play. He's got great size, and if he can develop some pass rush moves, they can get on the field, especially in a rotational situation. But it was certainly a pick that no one saw coming. And you know, as the dust settled, you kind of understand why they liked it. But I do think they went a little bit into sell mode after it was picked because they understood it was a little bit out of left field. But nonetheless, I think he can be a competent player. We already talked about Pete Warner. I think he's got the clearest path to a starting job. Really like this tape. Very clean football player. Does a lot of things good. I don't know if he's great at anything yet. But certainly does a lot of things well. The third-round pick, Paulson Adebo, certainly has a chance to get on the football field. We'll see.
Is he a plug-and-play guy? I've been asked everybody.
Maybe. And look,
had
he matched the production of 18 and 19 and not opted out in 2020 and had another 4 interceptions, 12 picks over 3 seasons, I think maybe he's the guy you talk about a second or a late first-round pick in that regard. So maybe you got a guy that, you know, maybe you got a bargain there. Ian Book is certainly interesting. He's a quarterback, big name. You know, Notre Dame quarterback for all those years. I went through his tape. I'll have a tape study on it or film study on it Sunday on the final play. Really scrappy guy. Can throw the football. He's got a natural playmaking ability with his off-script stuff. Now, there's some times where he makes a play a little more difficult by trying to extend. A lot of athletic quarterbacks have to deal with that in college. Hopefully they coach that out of him. But he's a guy Sean Payton certainly liked. He mentioned it. So when the 4th-round pick came, I like that value at that pick for that guy. Now, I don't know if he's a future starter. I think he's a guy, though, if Payton liked him, I think he's a guy who's going to get a chance. You certainly like his mental makeup as well. And you talk about the Kentucky tackle in the 6th round, Landon Young. I think he's got a chance to make the roster, A, and B, a guy you might be able to develop.
Is he your future right tackle?
Maybe. He's a former 5-star recruit. So here's a guy that I think
that played against SEC linemen.
Right. So I think he's a guy that 6th-round value. Did they move up modestly to get him? Did they move up to get him a modest move up? I'm not sure. And then obviously the wide receiver, Kawan Baker is a guy. We'll see if he makes the roster. Peyton likes receivers to really stand out in one area. So if he can do that, I think he has a chance to stick.
Mccoy versus Ruiz. You know, Ruiz was drafted to be the center for this team, but McCoy has played really well for him at the center position. Some say that McCoy is a guy that is a natural guard. You're going into this now without a Drew Brees, who made all the line calls for you. No matter who's starting, it's a new quarterback. Is this the year to make the move, and do you make the move?
You don't do it unless it makes sense on the football field. We could talk about scouting reports and college draft grades. If McCoy is better at center, you keep him there and you deal what you got to deal with at guard. If it's a better combination to have Ruiz at center and McCoy at guard, because both those guys, you know, Ruiz will go back to his natural position, but McCoy's been playing center for a long time. So that's a transition as well. I know size-wise, McCoy looks more like a guard.
Yes.
But if it's better, if it's more functional for that offense, it was better last year to have McCoy as your starting center. You had Ruiz at guard, but a lot of times Nick Easton played right guard as well. He's gone. So that'll all sort itself out on the football field. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. I do think Ruiz is one of those the offseason last year hurt him because I think he missed some development that probably could have helped him at some point. I thought he was a little up and down his rookie year.
And of course, as we close on the Saints, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about the quarterback position, Taysom Hill versus Jameis Winston.
Look, it's genuine competition. I know a lot of people already have Jameis Winston penciled in. Can I just say this? Can we stop with the hyperbole around Jameis Winston right now? I mean, either great or terrible. It's just everything is so exaggerated when it comes to Jameis Winston. I don't understand it. There's a lot of people in this corner. There's a lot of people that aren't. I think it'll all sort itself on the football field. But I think he needs reps. I think he needs reps with this new offense. Taysom Hill is a guy that didn't play terrible. He made some mistakes last year. I wonder if a year where they're lacking in depth in a lot of spots, where that versatility is probably more valued now than perhaps in other years. So maybe that factors into the competition at some point. I do know this. Jameis Winston, because I'm already starting to hear it. Oh, his workout videos look great. Oh, listen to him when he talks. Oh, has always had the most energy. Always. Has always been a guy that rallies people in the locker room. He's a leader. Has always had an off season where he's working out, and this is going to be a great year for him. Right. Go check every single off season of his career. None of that matters. I am not buying it until I see it on the field. Now, if you see it on the field, I'm going to give you a fair evaluation. I'm going to give you a fair evaluation from what I see at practice and in terms of who I think is going to win this competition. But on-field decision-making is what's all about.
That's all it is. That's what it comes down to. Duke can make every throw, okay? Smart player. He's got everything you want in terms of prototype size. He's got a great arm. And again, he's a leader. The only thing that has held him back is, again, his decision-making. On-field decision-making. That's it.
And look, there's been gunslingers that have thrown a lot of interceptions in the past, but the positive has outweighed the negative, and they've won more games than they lost. But in Jameis' case, he's got that gunslinger, but he lost more games than he won. I think he played a role in that.
No doubt about it. Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports is our guest. I'm your host, Eric Asher. We'll hear from our underwriters. We'll come back. We'll talk LSU. We'll talk college baseball. We'll talk Tulane. We'll talk Pelicans. On the way back, you're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Stay tuned.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Experiencing rough weather with a bad roof can be a nightmare. It doesn't have to be.
Suburban Roofing, because when it comes to roofing, there is a difference.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Tonight we have Sean Fazende of Fox 8 Sports. We shift gears to LSU. Man, crazy thing that happened yesterday afternoon where James Craig was relieved of his duties as the offensive line coach. First thing I'm thinking of, it's June, okay? You make these decisions early after the season. Now we're hearing all kind of rumors swirling on again. What happened? It has something to do with recruiting, and we'll kind of let that play out. But the question is, what do they do?
Well, you got a massive coaching job that requires a lot of responsibilities in terms of coaching these guys up. And obviously recruiting as well. So you have a massive responsibility, massive hole in your staff you have to fill right now. Hopefully this is something that they saw coming at some point, but I got to tell you, man, to fire your O-line coach, I mean, look, in June is a recruiting month where you got lineman camps, all that stuff. To fire your O-line coach, had to be something very big and very traceable and very, problematic that they had to get rid of him at this point. 'Cause you've had many opportunities throughout this offseason to get that move done. I will say this, James Craig, it won't be hard to surpass what he gave you. It won't be hard. It's just a matter of timing. Can this new coach get settled in? I thought didn't do a great job of developing his guys. Didn't do a great job recruiting. I thought the most overrated thing about the 2019 season was the offensive line. The tape doesn't lie, folks. Go back and watch the tape. So I thought that was the most overrated thing about the 2019 LSU Tigers. So this is a big hole to fill. You're already starting to hear names come out. We'll see what happens. But this is a big move in June. This is another assistant, Ed Orgeron has had to part ways with, and he's the type of coach. He has to get his assistant coaching hires right just because of the style he coaches in.
No, true. And look, this is a defensive line coach. You can maybe say, okay, Orgeron can jump in because he's a defensive line coach. And you say you already got one of those on the staff. This is an offensive line. And again, Craig was not a great recruiter to begin with. He was more the tactician, more the teacher in terms of, again, the technique, et cetera, along the offensive line. Are you elevating someone if you're bringing in someone? Again, is he teaching the same techniques? Are you doing the same thing?
Well, yeah, I don't know. To me, it's about player development at that position, because you're at that age where you're getting them, where they were dominating in high school. Now you got to develop, pass rush pass blocking technique, getting in coordination with your fellow offensive linemen. I do think LSU has been wanting to get a little bit away from the zone blocking so much scheme when it came to running the football. I know they want to get back to a little bit of gap scheme just because this is for a little diversity in their run game. So that all has to be coached by someone. That was probably getting coached by Craig. The good news is you have all 5 of your starters back. You got an older veteran group, but you got some young guys that are in desperate need of some development, because right now that offensive line realistically only goes 8 deep. You would only trust 8 offensive linemen on that right now with that LSU.
Just very, very curious on what happened here, one way or the other, and of course at this late date, again, having to make a change like that, really, really rough. All right, let's talk about LSU baseball and specifically about Paul Mainieri, who announced that he is retiring after this regional ends. I called him yesterday the most underappreciated coach at LSU since Dale Brown. It's amazing. Again, he did not have the success that Skip Bertman had, but
you can't.
Who will ever have that success?
Right.
No one. Okay, it's a different era. If anything you could say, and I've said that Bertman is the godfather of college baseball. He put college baseball really on the map. Matter of fact, I had a chance to watch Hold the Rope last night. Finally got a chance to watch it last night. It was
great.
And really great. It really takes you back to, again, how he built the program from scratch. And what he did, and again, how it affected not just LSU, but also the entire Southeastern Conference, because before that it was really Mississippi State.
That's it,
That was really, again, the
a lot of West Coast schools.
And then the West Coast schools, right, exactly. So, Florida, every now and then, but, really put LSU on the map, but really sent the message to programs around the country. You know what? You can build this program, put some money into it, and it can be a marquee program within your university. Yeah, you can get to Omaha,
right,
and really put Omaha on the map as well. Yeah, we watched the College World Series a little bit, but I mean, it wasn't the type of prestige you see now with the College World Series. So it was going to be tough on Mainieri no matter what. Again, following not directly behind Bertman, because Smoke Laval was there. People forget about that.
Right.
But he had great success here. But it seemed like it was never enough for the LSU fans.
He'll be appreciated a lot more after he's done.
I agree.
It's going to be incredibly hard for any coach to match Mainieri. It's you're not going to match Skip Bertman.
Right.
So my fellow LSU people, which I am alumnus.
Yes.
It ain't happening again. You're not winning 5 national titles in 10 years, which is an incredible feat.
Right.
In any sport. It's not happening. It's not happening anymore. The game has been elevated. The level field the playing field has been leveled. There are more schools putting more resources because, you can catch fire with college baseball. All of a sudden, you got a money-making program where almost every other school it carries a deficit. Right. So it's not happening. To do what he did is going to be hard. To do what Skip did is impossible. True. So I think in that regard, Mainieri is going to be much more appreciated after he's gone. LSU fans are always spoiled. And look, he's a guy that there's been some actual X's and O's coaching things that I have absolutely disagree with some of his philosophies, but success was always there. He recruited. He always got players in, big-time players, Bregman, those type of guys. And they won. I mean, they've been to Omaha multiple times. They won one, and they got to another one, which it's a shame he couldn't get that second one to add to his legacy. But nonetheless, a great college baseball coach. And I said on your radio show yesterday, Woodward goes for the big fish. Well, guess what? The big fish is leaving.
Yeah.
The big fish of college baseball is leaving. Who is the big fish in college baseball right now? We know some names, but there is no Kim Mulkey right now. So I'm going to tell you, this is not going to be easy because the chances of a guy with LSU connections is probably going to be slim to none.
Yeah. All right. It's been described as health. Okay. Neck, back injuries, etc. It's really making it difficult for him to be able, to coach like he's wanted to coach. Anything else to do? Is it what? Because look, there were some people who weren't happy with this situation because again he hasn't won another championship since '09. No matter what, if you're not happy with him, I would have said he still gets another year, coming off of COVID, etc.
I do think it's health.
You think it's just health?
Here's why. I think it's health, which has led to pretty mediocre finishes over the last couple of years, and here's why. I have said, and you can go back and check overtime tapes. I said, man, he just looks tired. Yeah. He just looks tired, and he said that in his press conference that it's taken its away. He said it's affected his focus. It's affected his energy. It's affected his, just his overall just want to go out and coach. And look, I think health has really tied into the lack of success. I think they were not going to fire him. He would have been asked to retire. Yes. I don't think he would have returned for another year, though. So it all kind of blends in. And look, 15 years, it's a nice number to close the book on. Yeah. I think he's done. I think he reached the ceiling. Yeah. Let's just be real. And I think now you get that out the way. You go to Oregon. I think you got a chance. Yeah. I think you got a chance. Let it rip. I mean, for the first time in forever, there is no pressure on an LSU baseball team. Let it rip, man. Yeah. Go out there and play.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question for you. I'm going to get back to that one. Let me first ask replacement. You just said it's going to be difficult.
It is.
Anybody you particularly like or would like to see?
Look, the O'Sullivan name is out there.
Right.
I certainly understand the connection there. He's obviously done great things at that program. I like the younger guy at Tennessee. Is it Vitello? Is that his name? He's certainly taken that program from doormat to where they are now. It's a shame Andy Canizaro's name cannot be back in the mix, obviously due to past transgressions, but I just think his name would be too hot right now, given what's happening in that climate. But there are some names that the Louisville coach is a name that's escaping me right now, but he's one. I think it's a great job. You got great facilities. You got a great recruiting base. You got a rabid fan base, which can be a double-edged sword. But if you're any kind of competitor, that's what you want. All this stuff about the spotlight's too big, man, get out of here with all that. Right. If you don't like that, this is not the job for you.
Well, that was going to be where I was going next, because what's the expectations here? Because when you look at a new coach coming in, again, you've already seen Smoke Laval melt in the shadow of Skip Bertman. Nobody was ever satisfied with what Maneri did. You've already said, look, he's going to be much more appreciated later on than he is now. If you're a coach coming in, are you using LSU for leverage here to get more money from the university you're at? Or you really want to go in and say, look, I can jump into this great program and make it even greater again?
I mean, hopefully that would be the case. I mean, I guess there's always going to be games being played with agents in terms of leveraging money, and who knows what real interest is. But look, man, the expectations are not going to change. Try selling that to LSU fans.
Right.
Yeah, listen, we're going to hire this new coach, and just for the next couple of years, we're going to be satisfied with mediocrity. No, not happening. So this is the premium job in college baseball. It gets no bigger. It gets no better.
It's like Alabama hiring a football coach.
Exactly. It should be a line out the door wanting this job. So you should have your pick. Something tells me LSU is not caught out the blue with this. They've had a guy in mind. And what I've learned from Woodward, and it's a reason why I've criticized him, but I think in this situation it's a reason why I think how he gets stuff done. He's not an out-in-front guy. I think he's much more of a backroom kind of dealer. And I think he's got something working.
Comes from his days dealing on the political side.
Exactly. I think he knows how to get deals done.
There's no doubt.
I don't think he's an out-in-front guy.
I agree. All right. LSU heads to Eugene. Oregon is the number 1 seed. Gonzaga the 2nd seed. LSU is the 3rd seed. Central Connecticut is the 4th seed. LSU will take on Gonzaga tomorrow. That's a 9 p.m. First pitch. It has now been moved to ESPNU. It was supposed to be on ESPN3. They've moved to ESPNU, so that's good. Your thoughts on them getting out of this regional?
I mean, it could have been a lot worse. They could have sent them to Austin. They could have sent them to wherever. I think not only did they, I don't know if you watched Selection Monday, but it was a while before their name was called. I was like, man, I don't know if they're getting in. I don't know if they're getting in. And then finally they snuck in there at the last minute. I think this is a very winnable regional. I think Oregon's obviously a force. I think they can beat Gonzaga. I think they got a chance. I really do. And let's not discount. There's a little bit of that LSU mystique that can work wonders here when you when you hit the postseason. So I think this team has always had talent. It just never came together for whatever reason, and the up and down with the pitching situation certainly did not help. But I think they got a chance. And look, I don't discount the idea that we're playing with house money here. We got nothing to lose. If we lose, so be it. We were supposed to. If we win, we're moving on.
I want to go back to football for just a quick second and the transfer portal. This last week it was T.J. Finley moving on to Auburn. This week it's Eric Gilbert moving on to Georgia. Your thoughts?
And Trey Bradford, the running back.
And Trey Bradford, yes, in the transfer portal now, right?
Look, the Eric Gilbert situation, what a roller coaster for 1 calendar year or 1 year with the LSU program, then the opt-out, then the portal, then committing to Florida, then all of a sudden there's rumblings that he's coming back, to now all of a sudden he's back home with Georgia. There are a lot of things. Mental health of a player is certainly up the top of the list in terms of you have to take care of. B, LSU is clearly not the spot for him, despite the fact that they bent over backwards. If you're LSU, at some point, you lock the door. It's over. It's over. Because if somehow this doesn't work out at Georgia, which based on track record, it certainly might. If I'm LSU, it's done. At some point, reliability has to become a play. And then, look, he's just not someone at this stage of his football career at LSU that you can consistently rely on. Maybe he does great over there at Georgia. Certainly sounds like being closer to home would be great for him. Wish him all the best, but it's time for the Reed Gilbert story to officially end in Baton Rouge.
I'm with you. How successful do you think T.J. Finley will be at Auburn? Do you think he's competing for the starting job?
I think he comes in, he has a chance. I think he comes in and he has a skill set that is different from the starter there. I think he comes in with a clean slate because this is a head coach's guy. He's a brand new head coach. I think he's a little bit behind. I don't see him surpassing him for opening day. I could see, because Bo Nix, to me, has a problem seeing the field. I've watched a lot of him. I could see that, the fire running out quickly with Bo Nix, and all of a sudden a guy like Finley moving in. I know it's in his best interest to get on the field as quickly as possible, but I think it's going to be a legitimate competition. Bo Nix will probably take the lead early, but I could see at some point him getting on the field. But there are some structural things with him he's got to fix. He's got to fix his mechanics. He's got to fix his decision-making. But he's got a strong arm.
Oh, yeah.
A very clean delivery when he has his footwork right and his delivery right and his elbow right. But there are some things that he must fix before he can be a legitimate starter in the SEC.
All right, let's put a wrap on college baseball for around the state. First of all, congratulations to the state schools that made it to regionals. Of course, LSU is heading out to Eugene. Louisiana Tech is hosting their own regional in Ruston. They're the #1 seed. North Carolina State is the #2 seed. Alabama, the 3rd seed. Rider comes in at the 4th seed in the Ruston regional. McNeese is the 4th seed in the Fort Worth regional. The 1st seed is TCU. Oregon State is the 2nd seed. Dallas Baptist is the 3rd seed. McNeese coming in at the 4th seed. Southern is the 4th seed in the Austin regional. Texas is the 1st seed there. Arizona State, the 2nd seed. Fairfield, the 3rd seed. The 4th seed is Southern. Interesting. Southern has an interim head coach. Their coach went to the major leagues before the season started. This guy's now, again, you want about playing with house money, right? Okay, he gets an opportunity to maybe get that job permanently. And then the beautiful thing about what's going on with McNeese and Louisiana Tech, both devastated by weather, and both programs that kind of had to be rebuilt again from for the facilities on up, and both of those programs now in a regional.
Yeah, how about Louisiana Tech getting that host regional site, doing really well. Quality baseball, man. Just like quality baseball all over the state of Louisiana. McNeese State doing what they do. And obviously, Southern baseball doesn't get enough credit for their consistency, how much they're in and out, constantly in regional play, year in and year out. Now, look, it's tough to advance, but given where they're at as a program in terms of stature. But, I mean, they hit their mark every single year. So, It's a good job. You know, in my opinion, though, there should be more Louisiana teams in there. There really should be.
Right.
But kudos to those programs for getting themselves in.
Well, it was very disappointing for Tulane this year. Based on what we saw last year, a lot of people felt, myself included, Tulane was going to be a team that was going to host a regional. Okay, they were supposed to be that good. Travis Jewett's contract is up. The question is, again, does he come back? And that's a big question, again, for Tulane fans, because I tell you what, I could go into a room with 20 Tulane fans, and 10 will tell me he should come back. 10 will tell me, again, that ultimately, again, he has to go.
For the 10 that say he should come back, let me ask you, have you reached the point where you have accepted no postseason baseball? That program at one point was the only program on campus that was consistently competing with LSU year in and year out and beating them.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is this okay?
Right.
Is this okay for the 10 people in that analogy you used there that are okay with coming back? Because to me, either they're not good enough, they're not clutch enough, they're not getting the – it hasn't come together. You've had 4 years. And obviously the COVID situation, that stunk. But the bottom line is the bottom line. You had no excuses this year. You had made a run through that conference, made a run through that conference tournament. You fell short. This season did not end the way it was supposed to. And there was talk of, you really winning the conference.
Yes.
So not acceptable in my opinion. And it's time to move on. And look, I don't want to see anyone lose their job. But look, these are why contracts are made. Yeah. So if the contract is up, it might be time to just say, hey, look, kudos and have fun.
Tulane's a difficult school to recruit for baseball. We know that because, again,
it's not impossible.
No, it's not. Well, Rick Jones did it. Okay, and so it was today the anniversary of, again, the regional between LSU and Tulane. Was it back 2001?
Yeah, the super regional.
The super regional when Tulane ended up going to the World Series and Skip Bertman again stepped away from college baseball. So again, you think back to those years with Rick Jones and you say to yourself, it can be done. It has been done.
Well, just think about that. 20 years ago, 01, I was talking that team one of the best in college baseball.
Right.
2021, where are they at right now?
Right.
LSU has maintained that level.
True.
Tulane has not.
No.
And look, I understand that that's what a lot of Tulane people like to throw out is it's harder at Tulane. But look, Vanderbilt does it, consistently. Stanford does it consistently. I understand it's a different conference, but you can win college baseball. I think it's a little more leveled out in terms of like the talent you attract, what you're able to do because of the programs. They've proven they can be successful. Plus, a lot of college baseball, those guys go on, they graduate and to a prestigious academic institution like Tulane.
Right.
I mean, that could work.
Right. Blake Dean did a pretty good job at UNO this year.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job.
And a guy that has continued to grow that program.
I think given the resources that he's given where the program was when he took over,
I agree.
I think he's very consistent. I think his teams play hard. I think he recruits well for what he's able to recruit to. And I think year in and year out, he's in the conversation. He's a guy that, I'm sure him being Blake Dean, being used to LSU and that success, that he'd like to have a little more success. But I think overall, based off of where they're at, that's a realistic. I think he's been a very good ambassador for the program, the university as a whole.
Yes.
I think he's done a really good job at UNO.
Talk about a guy that maybe Tulane could be looking at if ultimately Jewett is not retained. Matt Rives has done a heck of a job at Southeastern.
Very consistent. And he's a Tulane grad, am I not?
Yes, he is.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys with local connections that could certainly work for Tulane, including a former player that we talked about earlier. So, I mean, we'll see. But that job and that the task of getting things back to the level where they were should not be as difficult as the last few coaches have made it out to be.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Southeastern he's turned it into a nice job. He really has.
He really has.
And look, Southland Conference changes next year with all those Texas schools going away. It'll be interesting to see again how that kind of plays out. It's not going to be as strong of a conference without having those Texas schools. We'll see again how that conference evolves going forward. Yeah. No doubt about it. Let's shift gears to the Pelicans. And look, a 31-41, not the season we thought it would be. A season that was really kind of weird because you go into the season with again looking at Zion the way you're going to play him one way, and then by the end of the season he's your point guard or point forward, so to speak. I don't think anybody can. First of all, I'm not satisfied with 31-41. I don't know. Again, even with the issues that they had on the court, they were talented enough to make a playing game. When the top 10 teams from every conference go, you have 30 teams in the NBA and 20 go to the playoffs via the play-in tournament. you got to be one of those teams. If you got one of the top, you've got 2 All-Stars on this team, okay, and you didn't get in.
It's never been easier to make the postseason in the NBA.
Come on. And that's an easy league to make the postseason.
Yeah, and look, I know they've had injuries here and there, but every team had injuries.
Right.
And I know that was a condensed schedule, but every team had the condensed schedule. This was a disappointing year. It is not unrealistic to say you need to be one of the 10 best teams in a conference. Come on. You have, I mean, the moves you've made, the players you've acquired, you should be battling. This should have been the transition year to get yourself into the top 10, get a feel for the postseason life with some of these young guys, get them that valuable experience, and next year make your run.
No doubt.
Well, guess what? You missed your opportunity this year. Lack of clutch playing. I mean, your GM basically called you out, or vice president of basketball, whatever it is. He basically called you out for being, not smart and soft, which is 2 things you don't want to be called as an athlete. So you get to see, and I'm going to tell you, Stan Van Gundy, he does not have forever here. He's better get this thing turned around quickly next season, because next season, if you start out 8-20, I could see some serious issues happening with that. And then next year is the year you missed your opportunity for the transition. So now the expectation is that next jump, which you haven't made the first jump. So they got to make some serious moves, and it has to come together next year. It just has to.
We talked about it before the show, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit on the radio show today. I think you're past the methodical rebuild here.
That was this year.
Right.
That was this year.
You have to be aggressive. It's got to be aggressive retool this season. You made a mistake with again, the trades you made. You brought in Bledsoe. Again, you felt it would be a small drop-off from Jrue Holiday. It was a huge drop-off from Jrue Holiday, a guy that just doesn't want to be here. You could see it in his body language. Steven Adams, you thought would be a nice player. But again, does he fit next to Zion, where maybe you need a more athletic center? Not knocking his effort, what he brings to the locker room, none of that, okay? But is he a fit at that big center? I thought he would be. But again, the guy takes up so much space in the paint, you can't have 2 guys in there like that. So that's one of the things you look at. Plus, we talked about it before the show, Zion's never going to be a great defender. He's going to need somebody next to him to be a great defender, or that, again, can help him off the ball. And again, I don't know if that's Steven Adams at this point in his career. Right. You look at the J.J. Redick situation. It was supposed to be your scorer for the outside. He did nothing for this team this year. So last year's trades, free agency moves, and this year's trades have busted out for David Griffin. Okay, that's just calling it. They have been a bust. Now his drafts, right now they look good. They look like you got some guys that, again, are either going to be guys that can be players that can contribute for you or ultimately become starters for you. But those guys still, again, they have some growing to do. So you got some young players there. So the question is, what's the plan here? Okay, what's Griffin's plan? Because you went in one direction, and now you're looking at the possibility of again a point forward with Zion. You got to start looking at how you're going to surround him. Now I say 3-and-D guys that have length, that can score from the outside, but again have put a premium on defense. Being able to get out to the perimeter and play defense. Being able to help Zion if you got to sag back and play defense. That to me, I think it has to be the position prototype for this team. But I don't know what his position prototype is.
Well, I think he made it pretty clear. He wants, shooters. So when I hear shooters, I hear guys that can knock down the 3.
Right.
I said it all year.
He wants smart guys.
I said smart players.
And he wants tough guys.
Tough. I said it all year. When Point Zion became the phenomenon, it was great. But you saw the inevitable issue with today's NBA by going to that model because of the sheer mathematics of the whole situation. Zion is great getting to the rack. Good luck getting in front of him.
Right.
But he's scoring 2s. The other team, your biggest vulnerability was giving up 3s.
Right.
Sometimes the balance will shift towards Zion. If you make enough 3s, you win that game. But Zion could put up 40 points, you still lose the game because if you're giving up 23s in that game, which is amazing the amount of 3-pointers they give. It's amazing how many 3-pointers are shot in today's NBA. So that has to be a reset to that formula if you're the Pelicans. So who are great defenders that can also be shooters? I'm sure there are some out there. Hopefully, hopefully, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. They know who's out there, what they can make a deal for. So getting those guys in, and then it's a matter of Stan Van Gundy, making this work with rotations, with certain situations, and that sort of. Because I thought that flew under the radar a little bit. I thought he left a little bit to be desired from a coaching standpoint in terms of rotation, in terms of putting guys in. That's what plays called towards the end of the games, that sort of thing. So I think from the top down, this organization has to feel the urgency that this has to be the year.
I agree with you, Sean. And look, let me say this. You need to have the continuing maturation process of these young players you've drafted, and Zion. He's got to get better. He's got to get a mid-range jump shot. He cannot be a guy that ultimately, again, you're going to say he's going to get in the post or he's going to take the ball off the dribble and then go hard to the hole. He's got to develop. His game has to expand. He's got to. Okay. And then the other thing is, again, man, you're surely putting a lot on his shoulders. I'm going to bring the ball up. I'm going to make the plays in terms of being a point guard, and also I'm going to score, and I'm going to play defensive rebound. Man, I tell you what, you're putting a lot of pressure on just one guy here, okay, going forward. And then what do you do with the Laker 3? I mean, that's the bottom line here. You got Josh Hart, who's been the heart and soul of this team. You got to feel like he's going to be a guy that I think needs to come back. What do you do with Lonzo Ball? What if he gets a big offer on the open market? Are you willing to match that? And then what do you get in return? Because you cannot take garbage contracts back. You got to get something back in return. And if you didn't do that, then you made a mistake not trading him at the trading deadline. And then the last one is Brandon Ingram the long-term fit next to Zion Williamson? Or is he a guy that could be a piece that you can dangle out there to get better?
I'm wondering if that's maybe something that's talked about more than perhaps we realize inside Pelicans camp, because they got to get better. They have the urgency. You know, the alpha. It's not Ingram. The alpha is obviously Zion.
Right.
So is Ingram the right Robin to Zion's Batman? I guess we'll see. Josh Hart, to me, of those guys, certain guys just have this in their DNA. They just bring instant energy, and they're able to change momentum, even if they're not star players. To me, that's invaluable. You got to get a guy like that. He's a glue guy. Lonzo Ball, to me, would be a price point guy. All right, I'm signing you for this. If you want more than that, good luck, congratulations, go sign whatever. I wouldn't overpay for Lonzo Ball just because I feel like he had his moments. He certainly improved, but the overall consistency, and can you get someone better that can give you that? I do think those are legitimate questions when it comes to Lonzo Ball.
Yeah, I agree. It is a big offseason for this team.
Yeah.
It is a huge offseason. Whether they keep their draft pick or not, they have I think 3 or 4 second-round picks, and their first-round pick was the top 10 pick right now. Are they going to keep that, stay young? And then how, again, aggressive are they going to be retooling this roster, getting rid of the dead weight in terms of, again, these big contracts with these vets that didn't work out, and bringing in guys that more fit this system? And I agree with you. There's an expiration date on Stan Van Gundy. Okay, and look, I don't know, like I said before, he won't be the guy to bring this team to a championship. Sean, always a pleasure. Always great to have you on the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's plenty of ways to be able to catch this program now. It's so great to be able to have the opportunity to be able to be shown so many times. 6 p.m. tonight on WLAE-TV. 10 p.m. tonight on the Deuce WLAE-TV 2. Friday night, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television. 10 and then back on the Deuce back here on LAE at 10 p.m. We're on the Deuce on Saturday morning at 2 a.m. and then back on Pelican Sports Television at 5 p.m. on Pelican Sports Television. Catch me on the radio, 106.1 FM, weekdays 4 to 6. Listen live at ericasher.com. The podcast is on Anchor as the home base, but all the major podcasting platforms. You can catch the program. And, of course, you can always check us out on the iHeartRadio app, the TuneIn Radio app, if you want to catch us live. Also, want to thank Sean Fazende for joining us. Remember, catch him on Fox 8, doing a great job there. Also to our underwriters and the WLE production staff, which do a fantastic job producing this program. Ron Yeager behind Master Controls today. Jim Dotson. We've got Alex Chacon and Will Ingram. And I got to give a shout out to my man, Will Hill, who will be back with us next week, coming back from vacation. Thanks so much for tuning in. Certainly appreciate you checking out the program as always. We'll be back next week with another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. For Sean Fazende, I'm Eric Asher. See you next week.